Welcome back there, friends. We are 2 matches into the postseason with a third to come. We've got Oregon State and the University of California Riverside going up against each other as we switch from the Midwest over all the way into the West. Should be a pretty good one here. Oregon State, we saw them early on. They had that rivalry matchup versus Oregon. Really fun overall series to kind of just see the schools' rivalries kind of come to life in Call of Duty. But this one's all about just existing and trying to get to playoffs in the first place. Single elimination bracket still, of course, occurring. And, well, for both of these two teams, I don't know, man. It's hard to put a prediction one way or the other because I think we're going to be in for a good one this time.
And it's really hard to judge just off of everything that happened within the second split, right? I mean, you have UCR that didn't win a single series all throughout Tier 2 within the Western region. And then you also have Oregon State that went flawless within Tier 3. So a lot to be said about how these two teams truly match up against each other.
And you would hope that if the tiers, were indicative of the skill level of the teams, the worst out of one division against one of the best from the other should lead to a pretty even matchup. But we've seen some pretty crazy things so far today as far as our first 2 overall matches were concerned. So let's take a look to see how both these two teams have fared in the overall modes as we head-to-head compare to the two teams. As mentioned, it definitely helps when you go 9-0 in the second stage. That allowed Oregon State to get to 14-7. They were 5-7, of course, before that, whereas on the other front, 9 straight losses here for UCR, with Highlanders Gaming trying to get back onto their winning ways. Search and destroy and control have been a major issue for the Highlanders.
And it's something you have to feel needs to be a step above to where it was throughout the entirety of the first and second split for UCR. The Highlanders need to piece it all together. You can be adept at hardpoint. You can keep it close, just like what we saw in our second match in between Concordia versus U of L. But if the search and destroy and the control just simply isn't there, then this could be a runaway series for the Beavers.
Yeah, it really could be. And we'll take a look at the Beavers here first and foremost as we look over their roster. And I want to say one of the only times we actually had these guys on broadcast was from when they played up against Oregon in that rivalry matchup. But Strider, Icy, Tuscan, and Isaiah, that'll be your 4 coming into the mix. And I think the biggest thing about it, and what we're kind of comparing, at least to our previous 2 series, is as much as it's nice to have a hero, everybody has to perform if you want to get through your opponents in these postseason matches.
And it has to be consistent across all the game modes, right? I mean, you can have one breakout player, sure, but if you're not collectively there as a 4-player squad across all 3 of the game modes, your playoff run is going to end very, very quickly, because even a win here means you have to go up against New Mexico State, a team that absolutely would punish that lack of consistency.
Yeah. We'll take a look at the other side here for Cal Riverside and the Highlanders. It's, this is the deflating thing about these tiers is, and for the case, by the way, of Cal Riverside, they did kind of just barely get into the second tier. It was not a great opening starting stage, but it was just good enough in that Western Division to kind of elude some of the Texas teams, at least off of their initial stage. But playing up against a lot of the Oklahomas, Texas, New Mexicos, they were getting beat up. And you have to be able to just put that out of your mind, hope that you were able to kind of at least put together some improvements, and you should be able to beat a Tier 3 team. That should be the mentality going through it. So hopefully confidence is high for Beaver, Speedy Smacks, and Abyss.
Yeah, it all has to be there, almost going back to that day one strategy of just, hey, let's just wipe the slate clean. Let's go in, try to study what VOD we possibly can, try to rectify any issues that were at least coming forward in that 09 series record loss as far as Tier 2 was concerned for them, and just try to come out as strong as possible. You could also have the LAG effect. Look, you didn't have the strongest start to the season, didn't have the strongest tail end throughout Tier 2 either, but if you just come in, have some good fun, make sure that the comms are all there, make sure that the gunnies are at least warm, maybe with a warm-up scrim, UCR can absolutely put up a fight here.
We'll see. It'll be an interesting one. We are going to head over and take a look at what the 5-map series layout will look like for this particular series. And this is a round 2 matchup, by the way. The winner will go on to play New Mexico State. Not a fun opponent that you'll have to get through to get to playoffs, but you have to get to that point first, and it has to be by way of at least a Tuscan, hardpoint, Bocage search, and Gavutu control. Again, more variety built into the mix here. So I'm telling you, if you're like the last 2 months I've been casting, it's been nothing but Tuscan and Berlin. So I'm happy to see some Bocage. We will be, of course, guaranteed to at least get that for map number 2 here proper.
Yeah, no Desert Siege. You really only have an opportunity on one of the two Search and Destroy maps to really pull out a sniper, that we have seen some teams get a little squirrely when it comes down to the Bocage search to break out that Car 98K, Overwatch the A lane, and even the Riverfront as well. It can be quite telling to be able to see what the S&D is going to be looking like. Specifically, all the question marks that I'm going to be bringing up are all around University of Cali Riverside to be able to see what they are truly going to look like coming in towards the series. Because as far as the first two are concerned, a lot of SMG presence, a lot of flex presence needs to be there. But most importantly, how's the cohesion, how is the teamwork going to be able to gel together for this team after such a devastating opening of the season to be able to beckon the rest of the world that you can be a playoff caliber team?
And the thing, too, just to kind of echo off of that, is in the first two series that we had this evening, we saw some really great IGLing coming out, whether it's just by an individual or just the team comms overall. Concordia, Wisconsin really put together a hell of a display in all three maps that they were able to at least run through against the Cardinals. So I think that is also a very important part of making it through postseason, is not just being able to collectively play the game well, but I think also just the understanding and just general team nature that needs to be communicated at all times, needs to be executed at a high level here too. So that'll be really what we're kind of looking forward to here, is just waiting for map number 1 to start. Again, this western region was largely dominated, I would say, just by Texas schools for the most part. Texas and Oklahoma schools really kind of had their way with the West this year. And then you've got Arizona State that looked really good. You had Ottawa that looked really good. But the middle portion of this entire division really feels like it almost 1-for-1 to what we got out of the tier 1. We had some dominance at the top, some really lacking performances at the bottom. So I think it's going to be really interesting just to kind of get a gauge here, maybe just kind of greedily so as a league. Okay, like you expect the bottom of one tier and the top of another to be very tightly put together. Like technically speaking, the worst team in tier 2 should still beat the best team in tier 3. So is that going to hold? Because so far, it's been the teams out of the lower tiers that have actually kind of quote-unquote upset the more favorable seeded teams so far. So I'm excited to see how this one turns.
I mean, we're 2-0 as far as that is concerned. The team on the lower tier, it started off with University of Cincinnati, and then it went to Concordia. Both teams were in the lower tier comparatively to their adversaries, and they've come out to be able to walk away with the W. Again, it's very tough to be able to gauge when you're going back towards the first split of CCL's regular season for 2022, given the simple fact that everybody within these regions were split off into 4 different groups. So we probably, and I know for a fact, we didn't see these two teams face off against each other. So it's one of those things that we have all these question marks that are going to surely get answered here to be able to see what they're going to be able to stack up against each other. What are the strengths going to be looking like off of that spring break? How do those strengths end up playing out going in towards this LCQ? Because again, just to hit it one more time, you said it during UCR's team overview. I said it during Oregon's, is that you have New Mexico State, of all teams, waiting for you in that final round to qualify out of Group H for the Western Region LCQ. It is going to be a tough opponent, a little bit of a warm-up, a little bit of a tester for some VOD to be able to study ahead of that very difficult matchup.
All right, we'll see. Tuscan hardpoint will kick us off. And then Bocage Search and Destroy will follow us up. So you expect to see the speedy decision-making hopefully be executed at a high level. Man, it's postseason, baby. I can't believe that we're here. LCQ.
I can't believe we're here.
It's going to be just a small taste of some of the matches that we're going to get when we get to playoffs. But here we go. Let's see how things all unfold. This will be the Highlanders in the white and blue. Oregon State in their respective orange. A lot of mid-map focus here for the Beavers. It does somewhat get read here by UCR, but as Beaver falls to Isaiah, it's going to eventually be a double, and sorry to try to pick up the pieces to keep the contest alive. A very tightly fought first hill from both sides.
And typically when UCR starting off on the favorite side of the map, they should be able to at least hold on to those tree box headies, deal with a lot of the players that are coming out from you and on the respective side of the tree. Now, sorry, trying to extend this play, stayed alive for such a long time, picked up through you. Now finds themselves on 4 in a row, had a good look at 5, but will end up, of course, going down to Icy. But still, nonetheless, the recontest is good for UCR to keep this going forward. It's just about not only soaking up the back end of the scrap time, but hitting all the way through, knowing that the P2 spawns need to be at least contested.
Yeah, for the Beavers, it was a very large commitment into this scrap time, with numbers kind of forfeiting a lot of positioning initially over towards the second hard point. Strider gets a pretty easy read on Dasari, but actually could not follow up the kill. So this quick route being hit by UCR should lead to a block, but a good pickup from Isaiah off the spawn will allow the Beavers to still spawn in. Problem about it is all of the gunfights that have been won by UCR have now led to the Highlanders in the point. Tuscan's looking to get back in, but gets largely denied. And honestly speaking, this has been a very good hill from UCR up until Icy had something to say about it. It was a triple for him, and that was all through Church, as the Beavers will finally get into the 30-second mark.
Yeah, contested for at least the front 30 seconds, and they're still throwing numbers at this, keep in mind you, because they have just the immediate high ground. This is a very good opening for UCR to be able to continuously contest not only the back end of the scrap time, but to be able to keep all of the Beavers spawning in towards the back. Speaking of Beavers, big kill coming through from Beaver to be able to continuously contest the back end of the scrap time. And before that battle actually ensued, UCR made the heads-up play, make sure that they get players all the way to the backside of the well itself to be able to put themselves in favor for P3, knowing that that could be a money hill if they are not broken.
Oh, big gunfight in the back. Tuscan's a little slippery off the aim, but still turns that into a double. An important one, as UCR was looking really good for a fountain hold. But as their initial setup gets denied, Icy gets a really solid read on where the play is coming from and actually is able to force a team kill. But the problem about it is nobody else got involved whatsoever for Oregon State. So now it's down to a break attempt as UCR finally get into the hill that they had predetermined, some pretty solid designs for a setup on. Team kill also in the mix as Oregon State is looking to get one final push across into found. Not going to happen, but Icy just runs forward with little regard for his own life, and it works out beautifully. Isaiah there to follow up, and Oregon State will once again salvage the scrap.
Yeah, and that'll be the spawns flipping out as well, and the Beavers are completely reading this entire situation, spawning in over by the rooftops, knowing that UCR put favorable numbers to cut across, whether it was through the middle of the map or over by patio where they went, to try to set themselves in towards 4, but Isaiah, again, no regards whatsoever, just constantly pushing things in. Can't get the melee better of Abyss. That kill will come all the way through, but Oregon State already across the map, breaking into 4 early.
Yeah, this is, I think, just that speed really coming into play here for the Beavers. It's been executed on a number of times, kind of committing to scrap time, but still being able to contest, if not win, the initial of the new hardpoint, and that is an unbelievable setup for Strider. Just watching through you, everyone just keeps walking in front of him. And he's going to have a little bit of help here as well. Isaiah looking to cut off that pinch. Oh my goodness, just the team help coming through, and Isaiah absolutely smokes Speedy Smacks off a heady with a pistol after finding a double. And Oregon State all over the 4th hard point for our first convincing hold for either side.
Yeah, they broke in for the initial 5 and just held on. They just forced all of UCR to spawn all the way out.
Oh, no.
Little melee coming through. You hate to see it. Sorry. Tuscan's got the better of you. Just did not stay in the brawl. And now the big battle going through the middle of the map. Isaiah is still flying at everybody from UCR. Keep in mind you. Runs out of bullets. Putting on a little bit of a showcase of a spree there. But that's immediate communication for UCR, or for Oregon State, excuse me, where UCR are coming from.
Oh, but the spam down for UCR looks good initially until Isaiah gets back into the mix. Then, oh man, good kind of martyrdom nade coming out of Beaver leaves UCR, the last one standing, at least for a small time. Strider on the next wave on in. Icy from behind. Small little pinch plays like this have been the catalyst for so much success for Oregon State. And they will likely go pretty uncontested in this back 25 as Icy's doing even more zoning off in the ground. It's a triple for Icy, 6 in a row, and Oregon State blow the lid wide open off this first map.
Yeah, I mean, they have a 60-plus growing lead going in towards the second set. It's the SMG presence. You talked about the cadence, the pace that is being set by Oregon State. The first hardpoint was a little bit more of a 50-50, but ever since then, something has awoken. Isaiah is 20-13. Icy right behind them at 19-13 through the first set of hardpoints. And the SMGs are just belittling all of UCR to an absolute oblivion. But going in towards a first hardpoint for a second set, UCR are finding themselves some good ground, will at least guarantee themselves the initial 25 seconds. Is just dealing with the rest of the Beavers as they come marching back in.
Yeah, again, for UCR, not bad when it comes to kind of collecting and putting yourself in a position for a marginal comeback here. But I think there are just some play style things that are happening where Oregon State has a natural advantage at the moment. So there has to be adjustments made from Cal Riverside. Oregon State so good on these break attempts after the first 30 seconds. Once again, showcasing why. But UCR not going to give up so easily. Strider already defaulting to rotation will mean that this back 10 seconds will largely be secured by the Highlanders, and we've got ourselves only a 20-point game just like that. Convincing first hard point after what was a very convincing fourth for Oregon State gets us back to level terms, and a 1v1 over towards 2 very well could determine not just the status of the hard point, but Oregon State getting a little too frisky, have given up spawns kind of voluntarily, and they're going to get punished for this.
Where do you end up spawning towards the middle of the map if you are UCR? That's all thanks to Strider, who's actually making a heads-up play. They're 9-17, not the sexiest KD ratio in the world, but they get in the backside of Church and actually just salvage what was about to be a little bit of a snowball effect coming through from the Highlanders. The break, the contest comes back in 30 seconds still left to battle, and you know UCR don't want all of these seconds going up for free.
Really good correction once again. It really has been just kind of a game of corrections from both sides so far. Just when something is amiss, the immediate response that's needed typically gets formulated. Isaiah, even while stuns, finds a kill. Beaver doesn't finish his food, and oh boy, that's not what you want to see! Isaiah absolutely styles on Beaver, who just did not quite finish the gunfight, and that leads to some pretty significant scrap time here, not only because of the fact that Oregon State had to work through it in the first place, but it grows their lead back to about 40, and they're going to even deal with the player by rooftop, so this should be a southward spawn for Oregon State with an attempt to break.
Yeah, and you have UCR. It's still set up inside of 3. They know where this hit's going to be coming from. It's just about dealing with the one lurking player inside of the fire alley. Icy is that player. They find one. They play their life. The rest of UCR all look towards the east side of the hardpoint, but you still have the cleanup coming over by rooftops, salvaging the backside of this hardpoint as best as they possibly can, but they can't hold on for too much longer. Asari is trying to make this play extended for UCR, but the spawns are just simply not there. The gunfights aren't convincing enough, and Oregon State break once again.
Well, there's still an opportunity for Speedy in this 1v1 to force Oregon State to have to deal with them on the scrap, but all it is a finesse play, so you give up, still scrap time, not as significant as it could have been, but you don't. This is the problem for UCR. Look how far back into Church they are. You're going to give up 15 seconds worth of time and give up the front door of Church. Something has gone awry. And as Tuscan kind of really shows that, making his play through, it allows Strider to get in the back. Spawns are going to be all over the place here for UCR. I assume they're going to be by P2, and they will be. The problem about that is too far away to help this inevitable hit that's being set up by the Beavers.
Yeah, and look at the setup as well. You have players trying to watch through at least from the lawn side, but Strider has to at least look inside of the hardpoint to deal with players, and that allows Speedy Smacks to come back through grass. The issue still existing for itself is that you're battling over for scrap time is if you can't clean up these gunfights convincingly, of which the Highlanders will finally be able to do so. But Oregon State are just relentless. They have that leader's advantage. They can continuously throw numbers at P4, knowing that they have the spawns for P2, can win the gunfights for scrap while also trying to win the rotation over towards 5.
Oh man, another convincing hill. Still going the way of Oregon State. You're really starting to feel those marginal advantages leading to some pretty open avenues towards attack. Thought for a second Icy was about to put the entire UCR team on a poster. But it's Strider and Isaiah that will have the last words. As soon as the scrap finishes, the initial time goes orange to orange here between 4 and 5. Oregon State, potential to win the game right here proper.
Yep, and they can absolutely shut it down. They just got to deal with the players just over by the rooftops. That's going to be Speedy Smacks finding 2, tries to slide in with the MP40. They'll be dealt with, and UCR have numbers to try to break back in.
Convincing on their break attempt as well. Helpful and needed. Honestly, the majority of this last 30 seconds has to go your way if you're UCR. You can also get a read that when Oregon State want to give this up for rotation, that would be even better. But first things first, have to hold. And Sard is going to get red from behind. Oh, no. Once again, another member that's being tapped at, and UCR cannot finish the kill. And now on rotation, Icy's already breaking things up through L. Oh, it's all gone wrong. 8 seconds of time will put Oregon State within about 4 total points of winning this opening map. And Icy, once again, has slipped through, and he's about to just absolutely wreck the Highlanders. As he has Sorry run right in front of him, gets information on where Speedy is. Here's the Ego Chow, no problem. Oh. Unbelievable. And UCR are just about in a position to put this game out of reach. Or pardon me, Oregon State about to put this game out of reach, and there it is. Final moments, 250 hit. Oregon State, I mean, just clinically better from start to finish, even though the score was tight.
Yeah, I mean, the score was tighter than what it was suggesting comparatively to what felt like about a 70, almost 80-point lead going in towards the second set of hard points. But, I mean, UCR were salvaging time and time again, contesting hard points here and there, surely. But you can just look from top to bottom, and we'll get the stats back up on screen for you here in a moment. It's just one of those things that you just felt the pace difference just off of what was about P3 when you had the initial setup for the Highlanders. You just had so many SMGs just in your grill immediately. The Beavers just relentlessly assaulting every single power position, every single hard point. We're breaking successfully on every single hard point at that, but most importantly, their passive setups were just not it for UCR. Nobody in a forward position to almost able to find those two pieces, be able to find those trades once those flanks started to come all the way through. And it just allowed all of Oregon State just to continue just to run amok, just to always find that pressure, that advantage with the SMGs, to be able to always find those kills necessary to be able to get such stellar map position.
Yeah, it really did come down to the real estate. I think if you were to put like the map into a possession of control, I would say the vast majority, I'd say 60% plus of the map was always in favor of the Beavers. Here are those final stats. Isaiah and Icy, massive games, 36 and 29, 39 and 26, and Tuscan's behind them, 36 and 23 with 2 minutes of hill time. It really just was kind of, I mean, I will say this much. I mean, as much as we're giving a lot of credit here to Oregon State, I mean, 185 to 250, you would have thought that stat lines like that would have been much closer than they were. So maybe something to be desired as far as how the play style may be leading to maybe some missed moments here or there, but a good win nonetheless.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you could almost wag your finger a little bit at UCR. Maybe you could end up saying maybe Speedy Smacks needed some help, at least keeping that pace up. The setups were there. They were contesting for the scrap time, sure, but most importantly, when it came down to rotational battles, they had an understanding where Oregon State were coming from, but when it came down to those isolated 1v1s, those 1v2s that more often than not, I felt like I could have almost counted on a multitude of hands how many times I was watching gunfights and UCR just weren't finishing the kill. And that one big kill that was about to be coming through for UCR would have meant more than about 15, 20 seconds of hardpoint time. We could have absolutely had a much closer scoreline than what was 250, 185, albeit close for UCR standards. But you could definitely end up walking away with a whole lot more had you just walked away with those crucial kills.
So now map 2. Speed and tempo could still be a problem here as we go to Bocage Search and Destroy. And I think if you're really avidly watching this series right now, I think a lot of people out there would be saying, if you're UCR, you cannot allow free control of Granny's house if you're on the defense here. And these SMGs need to be tempered, maybe even more so than that. Because if you allow Icy and Isaiah just to run forward on you, you're going to be in for a world of hurt defensively, let alone what are you going to do then on the offensive side of the ball.
I mean, the round could be over just in about 25 seconds worth of work. Constantly seeing just Icy ego chow everything and walking away with the gunfight wins, just all off of the communication that is being conveyed from all of their teammates. Same could be said what Isaiah was getting away with, specifically from two different sets of rotations from 3 to 4, was just running in there into church. The same could be ended up said when they're on offensive side for Oregon State, just running inside of Grandma's and just knowing what positions are going to be held, clearing it out like a pest control, and then just walking away with the offensive round win. It's very possible.
Well, we'll see. Man, but the problem about this is, you know, we were talking about the statistics at the beginning of this matchup. The hard point was really the only thing for UCR that was looking solid for them in the second tier.
Right.
4 and 13 in search, 2 and 10 in control. So I think what we're getting at here is you could be just in for an evening of 3-0s, all of it being from the team coming out of the lower tier. Definitely surprising to say the least, but you feel like this is a must-win map if you are UCR, especially if your hard point is going to be, you know, that flawed as far as I won't say like, you know, by design, but just in the head-to-head matchup. It's just Oregon State has a natural advantage based on what kind of tempo they want to play at. So you have to be able to control the SMGs here. You have to get into the dominant position, the alpha position first in this map if you're UCR, in my mind.
And how do you end up doing that? That mostly comes through ARs playing these very powerful positions, especially with the A-bomb now outside of Grandma's over by top plat. You end up playing that godheady of a tank, just watching that entire play come through from the P2 side. Same could be said over by Willow Tree and the Dovecot Tower. Offense first here for Oregon State. Going to be an aggressive push for barn control and try to get an A early.
Yep. But it is Icy with the bomb, so you have to be at least somewhat responsible with how far forward you want to go, especially considering that the Beavers have actually just kind of held their ground here. individual players just watching individual lanes, and then a blind commitment to getting the bomb planted after the stun check came through. And that's a bit puzzling. So Oregon State will get the plant and back away. And if even beyond that, find a kill here. We'll get the overlay right in a moment, but Sorry doesn't know what to do. He's kind of in a stuck position, and as he sees one player run across him, he completely loses him on the track back, and Duchens is there to pick up the kill. Not a good start here for UCR's defense.
Not at all. And now with Speedy just throwing a couple shots, he's going to get swarmed by beavers. Which sounded a whole lot better before I said it, but now I think I just gave myself a nightmare later on tonight. But even more so than that, it's just, again, Oregon just committed and executed just very, very quickly and aggressively at that. Again, Icy got stunned on the bomb. There was nobody down by Water Wheel to immediately challenge that. Well, there was a player down by Water Wheel, but did not end up challenging it to stop that bomb from being planted. You had Abyss top God Tank to overwatch the entire play defensively, but just was not in a position to be able to deal with the player top barn for Oregon State. Even more so than that, with Strider finding that player down by River, there was no flank potential for UCR to be able to upset that through the middle of the map. And a more passive offense coming through for UCR, trying to play off a stun and information that they could possibly find, but they're split from across 2 different lanes of the map.
Yeah, very responsible search and destroy being showcased here by Oregon State. I'm still just puzzled that you blindly go in for that Planet A, by the way. It's just a lot of trust that your AR over the top of you is going to keep you safe. Double stack defensively, high-low over towards Granny's. 2 chens for first blood. I believe the doors being open in mid will be heard, and Oregon State turned that kill into a little bit more of an advanced position. But Isaiah cannot make good use of it, and Ice is going to get caught out here. So all things said and done, 45 seconds on the clock, we go 2v2, and technically speaking, UCR hold the map advantage.
They do hold the map advantage. Sorry needs to work their way over towards A bomb and try to go for this plant. 2 chens is in the position to almost try to upset this play. Does end up seeing Beaver. They'll find the kill. The bomb will be planted, but now Sorry has to go for a reposition. Try to lock down these kills. Strider will find them inside of Grandma's. And although the play was immaculate when it's coming through from the bomb carrier of all players, Sorry ended up making that play happen. Pop Dead Silence. You asked if the doors were going to be heard. Dead Silence completely muffles those doors from being cracked wide open from any other player in the vicinity from the adversary team. And still, although holding superior map position, nobody was aware that the push was going to come through on the backside of the God Tank, and that's more of a misconnect than it is anything coming through from UCR than anything. They had the map position. It's just about dealing with the players that were going to come from the hedge side of the map.
I think there's also just something to be said about you have to be able to know what you're going to commit to and what that means as far as both of you working together on the map. That's where we, I think, largely see a lot of the teams in the mid-levels of the CCL kind of struggle. Is the opening set plays are typically fine, but once you get to those 2v2s, 3v2s, what do you do from there? Well, how about this? Third round, Beaver just denies the initial play from both Icy and Isaiah mid-map. Those are both the SMGs down, but most importantly, also the bomb that's been dropped on the ground.
Trying to rewrap this play all the way over by Riverside as well. They're trying to isolate any player that they can possibly find. You got one player just outside of the small hut. Speedy just caught some of the worst caught timing I've ever seen. 3v2 we go.
Time can be a little bit of a problem here for both of these ARs to have to clear with. There's also something to be said about 2 chens on 5. How much of an effort do you really want to give this versus just maybe playing for streaks? Strider's cleared out the entirety of the back. Sorry, stuck in a corner. Aim is being held, but there is help from beyond. Strider, a good read for this, though. Sees the other pistol in hand, and he's going to take the 1v2. You had the clock and the bomb in your favor if you're UCR, and you decide to play for kills, and you get punished for it, and now Strider's on 5.
Oh, no. If it was 2 chens trying to play for streaks, now it's on the opposite side. I mean, you said it wonderfully. The bomb was pancaked inside of Grandma's, and you had the clock on your side. It was, what, about like 28 seconds remaining? You're in a 1v1. You just run at that point. You try to play in a 1 position to try to stop that plant from coming through at A. They try to play for that kill, and it absolutely punishes them. Immediate aggressive defensive push coming through. Icy finds first blood.
Yeah, 2 chens is also pushed through river, by the way. This is just... Oh, gosh. What are we looking at here, UCR? Man. You know, it's really funny because the last match that we had with Louisville and Concordia, Wisconsin, there felt like there was a moment. Oh, God.
Whoa.
Oh, Isaiah, what are you doing out here? I was going to say there's a moment where you feel like the team starts to recognize, dudes, we're just better. Like, throw the strap book away. Let's just run at them. And I think we're getting a little bit of that right now with Oregon State.
Day one strategies. We got the better gunnies, just belittle them with bullets. An aggressive push, no one was surprised. The Beavers quickly through P2, and no one's watching this. UCR trying to cut this down through the middle of the map. They take the gunfights and lose.
Yes. Where are you going?
Oh, man.
Oh, boy.
Woo!
Can we just set it to the halftime break now?
I mean...
the thing about this is I'm still puzzled off the fact that for what is likely going to be the third time tonight, that our team from the second tier will be not just beat by a team coming out of the third tier, but getting styled on by the teams of the third tier. It really is surprising.
I think it's also something to be said just about the overall correction that was been made since the beginning of the season. Another aggressive push to the middle of the map. UCR need to find this kill. They run straight into Icy. They lose 2v1 trades. We go.
Yeah, and Icy's already clearing out mid-map. Strider's just going to hold his ground, knowing that, okay, well, if they're not mid, they're not in their spawn, they're not towards B, they're either inside this building or they're coming around the outside by tanks. And we're about to get our answer here as Oregon State have completely contained UCR inside, and Riverside is just looking for trades. The math does not favor that play. 2v3, obviously. So Oregon State will hit the brakes and say, well, you're going to have to come out and plant eventually. Beaver will open us up with the first kill, but Icy just running on forward will make sure that this turns into a pretty impossible 1v2, and so it will be.
Jeez.
Wow. 6-0 in the search, Oregon State all over it.
They made that map feel just as small as it truly looks on the mini-map, Alan. Again, they played reserve search and destroy through the first 2 rounds, and then they swiftly realized the Strider will finally get themselves that glide bomb they were working so hard for. It goes flawless through the entirety of the search and destroy. Good heavens. They were just, again, denying every last little bit of the map that was even offered for itself. And keep in mind, as the offensive team, you have a better look at the mid-map before the defensive team can even get there. They have to get through the main road. They have to get past the black car first and through gate, where the offensive team can end up just posting up inside a barn, outside a barn, just overwatch that entire play coming through. It just continues to say the same narrative that we were witnessing on that Tuscan hardpoint, that Icy and Isaiah, they don't care. They are just running at you. They are just centering you down, and they are just belittling you with MP40 bullets. They definitely had the better gunnies as far as the 8 players in this lobby is concerned, and they are letting everybody know.
Why not? I think that's kind of the biggest question that we could possibly ask, and that is rhetorical. There is no need to answer that because we're getting the results and the exhibitions of why on our screens. I don't really know what to say about this. I mean,
under 5 minutes, search and destroy.
Yeah, wait, wow. That's actually...
Probably would have been under 4 minutes if those first 2 rounds weren't as reserve.
That's probably true. Wait, that's actually so fast. Wow. It's just... The thing is, it's... Look, I get that we're still in LCQs. I don't want to pin any hopes up too high. We're only in the second round of those LCQs. But off of what we've seen from Concordia and what we're seeing now from Oregon State, they look like they got all the components to not just finish this LCQ run, but they could give a headache to a number of teams in playoffs. And I say that because it's not just the fact that they're individually playing better. Just as a squad, they're showing us a lot of really cool plays around the map. A lot of trust, a lot of composure. It's all good stuff. So exciting things here for the Beavers. Not so good for Cal Riverside. We'll head to the halftime break, come back in for map 3 control right after this. Welcome back. It has been all Oregon State. I said that phrase a couple of different times today. It was all Concordia, now it's all Oregon State. And the road becomes very narrow here for UCR as we approach a control. We talked about their woes in search and destroy just on the year. They only get worse as we get into the control. Only 2 wins, I believe, I think we said. Yeah, 2-10 in control so far this year. And they would need to find win number 3 on the Gavutu control if they were to hope to extend their postseason hopes here for the CCL season.
Now look, Alan, I feel like we've gotten to know each other pretty well over the past few years. I'm fairly optimistic when it comes down to overall broadcasting, but like, this is probably going to be a good look for UCR. I mean, look, it's Gavutu. You're not just going to be run at by like 3 SMGs anymore, right? I mean, you got to put those away. But that's exactly where I was going to go. Or are you? Because look, Oregon State again as a whole squad, ever since the early get-go of Tuscan, or even I would say probably like 30 seconds after P1 had initiated on Tuscan, they've just been running at everybody. They played the first 2 rounds of Bocage Search reserved, and then they were like, hey, we have a chance to make history and put on a speed run for 4 minutes and 34 seconds spent on a search and destroy for Bocage. That's got to be some kind of record in CCL, I'm telling you that much. But for Gavutu control, you have to know and understand at certain instances of time, defense or offensive like UCR, Oregon State, they don't care. They're going to run at you. You have to somehow mitigate any sort of map presence of what you can find and deal with these players that are aggressively getting in your face. From there, that has to then turn into map position in your favor, and then it's a rinse, wash, repeat situation.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen. We got ourselves a 3-0.
Yeah, that's very much so the case. Boy. Yikes. That's crazy.
Yeah.
We'll see. But UCR and World of Hurt, a lot of trouble right here. And unless you can find a way to really keep those SMGs at, I was going to say arm's length, but I think the proper way to say would be at R's length, AR's length.
AR's length? R's length.
Like that. Got them out of it. That needs to be, that's like requirement number 1. That it has to happen here. If you want to have a chance at the map, you have to make sure that if there are SMGs, which you expect to be at least 1, you cannot allow Icy or Isaiah just to pop off and run rampant on you.
Even scarier, though, is that Strider was that player as a main AR for Oregon State that went 7-0 through the Bocage Search and Destroy. Isaiah will find first blood. It's an offensive round for UCR. Trade will at least be there, and they are getting presence in the A zone to stop the clock early.
Abyss. Yikes. I was going to say, he's responsible for mid-map, and he wasn't sure where he wanted to position, and that allowed Oregon State really just an opportunity just to full flood through mid. Not just convincingly clearing the zone, but now they're going to be putting them into a bit of a spawn trap, and uh-oh. This is where things get very dangerous. Although Speedy does find a kill through the back, so Oregon State will have to be dealing with this off spawn. To be on Icy trying to find his own trade, essentially. But even if you find some progress or some clock stopping here at B, your teammates are not going to get there to help you. Not only are they not going to get there to help you at B, but they don't have any opportunity to get over to A either at the moment.
Yeah, I was about to say, this almost feels like a little bit of deja vu from a match that you and I casted last Monday as well. You can have one player isolate themselves over on B, but again, you got a tick. That's great, but the rest of the team was struggling to get out from spawn. They do have ring control, but again, Icy just does not care. Let's go 1-for-1 top ring, but off of that, UCR still getting LSC control.
Keeping the lives relatively even. The biggest problem here is the clock. You need to start finding significant progress on this A zone to get the extra 60. Then we could talk about hopeful offensive round win opportunities. Ooh, hello. Icy on the way to contest as the second tick of progress. I don't believe it got locked. It's still being contested as well, and oh boy, yeah, it did not get locked at all. And Sorry off spawn was still focused on B, so now the clock becomes a major issue. Down 6 lives. No one's even close to getting to either zone, at least not safely. And Oregon State looked good for the defense, pending they can find this last elimination on the Speedy, which he walks right in front of Strider.
Be a lockdown defense coming through. Aggressively lockdown, I should say. The tracking. The wall bang headshot. Strider on to Sorry. It's a clean kill feed to close out this final round. 7v19. You're not getting anywhere close towards this A zone, to say the least. The cliff path is being held. Strider's holding top LST. May have found at least a trade Abyss, but you are not getting towards this A zone. Oregon, again, just aggressively pushing the envelope into the spawn of UCR, even off of the early get-go of that first round on Gavutu control. Trades were there, but you even said that when they did find those kills, they had no understanding, UCR, of where to put themselves. What lanes do we need to be watching? What is the power position going forward off of this? You had one player through the middle of the map, the mid-tank. You had 2 players inside of the A-zone itself, but nobody was contesting top LSC, at least not reliably. And that's just a lot of Oregon State just to resurface themselves as they start their offensive push, completely going through all the seawalls, trying to mount a B-zone push.
UCR are in a pretty good spot, though, to deal with this. Speedy finding a first blood through mid, and Abyss keeping his life for at least a larger amount of time leads to the Highlanders playing recovery over top of ring. 2 Oregon State Beavers will make their way on towards B, though, and they're fighting back up against the high ground. Very well done. And Sorry gets team naded. Oh, he actually kind of blocks the nade from landing inside the landing vehicle. That could have been a double, but instead he catches it off the back of his head, turns into a team kill, and a second tick of progress all of a sudden for the Beavers.
You don't want to be catching live grenades in the first place, more or less. You don't want them ricocheting off the backside of your head. They're going to leave Isaiah over here, try to make a heads-up play. Abyss was too asphyxiated on top ring to where, yes, there are Oregon State players, but now Isaiah can just play this corner, and UCR have to chalk it. They lost so many different lives. Isaiah almost had a good luck to get that kill with the pistol, but 60 seconds added onto the board, a whole whopping 2 minutes of 3-life lead in favor for the Beavers to assault the easier of the two zones.
Oh, man. Not good news here, but UCR have an opportunity to get their defense set up around A. At least you would have thought. Speedy's watching the cross very nicely, but he loses his help down low, so now he's kind of stuck top third. Bullets starting to pierce the veil around the side of this gun up top on the turret. And Beaver does well, at least help out from the low ground. 4 in a row, being chased, and Strider and Tuscan turns that into a double that will allow the Beavers to stop the clock and start getting more progress here today.
And they're starting to get really good positioning as well. You do have 2 up top LSC. You have Isaiah on your screen, holding things down in the middle of the map. They don't have to find all the kills. Just good damage is going to keep all of UCR at bay.
Not good news here for the Highlanders. No way you slice it. You got numbers to retake, but you've already lost a second tick of progress, and there's still 90 seconds plus on the clock here. Oregon State to work with. Need to get a spawn trap right here, right now. Speedy's trying to get forward to do that, but the gunfights just are not good enough. The individual skill difference is really starting to showcase itself in a number of these individual gunfights that we've seen. 13 playing up against 7. Tuscan's almost an opportunity to turn that into a double. But honestly, for Oregon State, getting a little loosey-goosey with this, not really focusing on the objective, trying to play forward past it, and it's kind of costing them an opportunity here where the lives are becoming a bit of an issue for both teams.
Only one more respawn remaining, though, for UCR. Oregon State, they have that information. It's mutual to them. There come the last 3 lives remaining now. Abyss, Beaver, Speedy Smacks, the last alive. They have to stop this stack for the last tick of progress. Beaver will slide in. They will get cut down as Oregon State will win the offensive round to boot, go up 2-0 in the control. They're already 2-0 up in the series. And again, just to highlight something you brought up, just the individual skill level is absolutely there. It is a hefty margin in between what Oregon is offering comparatively what UCR are trying to bring to the table. Again, we were talking about the SMGs, at least coming into Gavutu. At least I was. I know you were denying it, but even still, it doesn't matter. Automaton, MP40, all of Oregon State Esports just do not care. They are running it down any single lane that they can possibly find and getting all of the kills to boot.
All right, UCR. Has to be a miracle moment, and they're going to try to do it by hitting over towards B initially. Strider actually plays forward, going to get denied the ability to set up the early defense towards ring. So now you kind of have to retrack back through mid, which Icy is fine to do, thanks for the AR. However, double stack happening. That'll turn into 1 tick of progress. Icy for the Chow to try to contest, and he gets beat up pretty quickly. Speedy for the double. This will turn into a second tick of progress at B, no problem. And the kills behind should lead to an opportunity to capitalize on B on the first ask. And yeah, sure will. Icy's going to try to slide out and Chow once again. And interestingly enough, that will be it. It's just the one solo challenge, and Speedy Smacks on 4 was a huge reason why that B zone got capped in the first place. Yeah,
it was really good help from top ring. You also had that second player that was down low inside of the lander to be able to help things out. Not only speed up the tick progression over by B, but be also to be able to play the trade factor as well. 2 automatons versus the 1, I'll definitely take that easy math to say the least. But now you have the easier of the 2 zones to try to tack on over if you are UCR. The biggest issue going forward is that you did lose a lot of lives in trying to connect that B over towards A zone. In Oregon State, they know exactly what that means. Immediate cliff path control in favor of Icy trying to spawn trap our adversaries.
Have to work through this in this 2-2 setup. You cannot afford to lose individual gunfights here. Turn it into trades at worst if you're UCR. That will work. Green control now goes to Abyss and the Highlanders. Strider up top, denied. Opportunity to get onto this A zone and send this into a 4th round in pretty convincing fashion, mind you, as well. However, you do have Oregon State trying to hit a bit of a pinch from the backside. Tuscan's coming in completely unconcealed. Oh boy, that'll be a 3, now 4-man team wipe. The second tick of progress doesn't even get locked. 3 life deficit for the defenders of the Beavers, but map positioning all up in the face of UCR.
Tuscan's 39 HP, still trying to swing for it as well. Nice double challenge will come through bottom side of the radar station, trying to lock down these kills. But the further gunfights that come through for UCR need to be convincing, and if they are not watching their flank, Icy will continue to hit it, does take down Speedy, but the trade will be there. 50 seconds remaining, 12v8, and they're able to deal with at least one player inside of green. Now you got to get a player inside that A zone, try to stop that clock, and get these last 2 ticks.
The gunfight's just not coming their way. Speedy around the back could really put a lot of pressure on the Beavers life-wise. But from the front, again, it's just, you see what's happening. UCR is trying to set up a solid second play to kind of get at least the war won on 2 fronts, but where they're most heavily stacked is where they're losing all their gunfights. Speedy has to come back to the play, not getting an opportunity to get a single kill off the respawn due to the fact that his teammates couldn't find a single kill. And as he isolates himself, he will be traded. Oh, it's all gone wrong. It's all gone wrong.
30 in the Bay of the Solomon Isles. It is shipping off to the sunset in the evening, Alan. UCR, we're going to get 3-0 here. This will be the end of their run for College COD 2022. They had themselves such a good look, and I mean that wholeheartedly. A fantastic look to be able to get themselves inside of that A zone. They had 2 players over by green. It just came down to be able to find that trade on Icy over by the cliff path. They found that trade, but then the players over by green, they need to stop hesitating. They need to come help out, get top LSC back in their favor, and the one player off of respawn needs to immediately go over towards ring, lock down the middle of the map, get a player inside of the A zone for heaven's sake, stop the clock, and make all the gunfights come to you. With all those power positions, it should be an easy equation to be able to find those gunfights. But Oregon, again, just able to collect off of a little bit of hesitation coming through from UCR there at the very end to be able to walk away with that final round.
Yeah, it just, individual skill, I think, is where the conversation kind of started and ended with this series. But I do think that as a byproduct of the individual prowess from Oregon State, they did showcase a much more deep sense of a team play as well, what we got out of UCR. Man, tough scenes for the Highlanders, but some of these top tier 3 teams are looking a little different. And I think there is something largely to be said. Like, here's the thing, like, you kind of stagger your way in to tier 2 if you're a team like UCR or a team like University of Louisville. And then you get beat up for 5 straight weeks worth of stage 2 action, essentially. And then you have to fight through an LCQ where you have to play up against a team that's coming out of a round 1 warm-up, essentially. I don't know. It definitely goes to show that there were a lot of very talented teams that still existed down towards tier 3. Maybe the mental state was just a little bit different, but it's hard to say that when you've got players like Isaiah and Tuscan and Icy looking as nuts as they were throughout the entirety of the series, and Strider just kind of happy to be there locking down the back.
That's honestly, I mean, you couldn't have wrapped up Oregon State just overall game plan in a prettier bow, because that's really what it felt like all through Tuscan, Bocage, and Gavutu for all 3 game modes that we did have in front of ourselves. And even comparatively to that, you talk about a warm-up. Oregon State, they come off of a bye. They didn't have a first-round opponent. This was their first match of the day. Warm-up scrims aside, I'm pretty sure UCR did have one. I don't know about the Beavers, but regardless of the matter, the pace differential was there. And just the overall gun skill. Again, I go back to what this team of the Beavers looked like at the beginning of the season as a whole. They get knocked down a few pedestals for where their confidence probably had to be at, but homework had to have been there. The execution to be able to then translate that VOD studying into scrims, then into real time for tournament play is absolutely at an all-time high. Yeah. And it's very resemblance as far as the overall series layout is concerned. A lockdown 6-0 on that Bocage search and destroy. Under 5 minutes. Again, I'm going to say it again. 4 minutes, 34 seconds on a Bocage search and destroy. You absolutely made the Highlanders of UCR look silly, but even more so than that, it's consistency going forward. To be able to play with that confidence, to play with that gusto, that speed, and also the same amount of team cohesion of what we did see while also playing that fast against New Mexico State is the difference maker in between you making it out of LCQ and into the playoffs or not. Yeah,
that's new. Like, you got to remember that New Mexico State, like, they missed out on one tiebreaker game from being in the top cut of that Western Division, where I think they would have been a lot more competitive than New Mexico themselves actually were. So going up, this Oregon State team going up against New Mexico State, you better bring your A game next week, because this New Mexico State team is pretty nuts. I mean, they were flawless against tier 2 teams, not just in the second stage, but also during the first stage as well. So when they got into the tier 2, I think they got into the tier 2 with they only lost 3 matches. It was all against the other teams from their division that got into tier 1. So yeah, they're looking a little bit nasty, which will be really unfortunate because this Oregon State team is really good, but that's going to be a tough matchup. Better be prepared. Better do your homework. There's plenty of VOD out there on that New Mexico State team, so you better start cracking at it if you want to have a chance of getting into the playoffs, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, New Mexico State, they've been kind of fluffing themselves all throughout the entirety of Tier 2 for all those games, like you were already highlighting. And even more so than that, it just has to be Oregon State to be able to, again, study that VOD that you were talking about, come as prepared as you would a college final. And you could probably end up playing upset. That would be a true upset, to say the least, to be able to beat New Mexico State. You're dealing with 2 teams that were undefeated through split number 2, but even more so than that, Oregon State have a whole lot more to prove, especially us as an audience, everybody at home that is unaware of what Oregon State and New Mexico State honestly have to bring. But on paper alone, it would be an upset in Oregon State. They are definitely looking at least able to be tasked to do so.
The baseline and the foundation, I think, is there, but you have to be able to be good at live adjusting once you start to get, some resilience thrown your way. But regardless, that's the only, I told myself I was not going to put the coaching hat on anymore for postseason. So do what you got to do if you're the Beavers. That said, though, we're done with the first week of the LCQ for the West and the Midwest. But tomorrow we're back for more. That'll be over the Northeast and Southeastern regions. A lot of good matchups going on in the LCQ, so make sure you come right on back. And, of course, that continues into next week before we get into our official playoffs in the 2022 year. See you tomorrow. Don't go too far. Till that point, keep pulling it down. Later. Bye-bye.